Hi, welcome to the Political Beat at lfpress.com. I'm Pat, this is Chip. We cover City Hall for the London Free Press and lfpress.com, and man, did we ever cover it this week, Chip. Are you like me? Are you just like zonked today? I am so tired.
There's
a lot of stuff going on.
And we didn't have to talk like all the politicians did. We just had to scribble down.
That's right. We had to get out the typewriter.
Yes.
And
the old Underwood.
That's right. So
on deadline.
What's an Underwood?
It's a typewriter.
Oh, okay. All right. How old are you? So the first thing we'll talk about, Billy T's, the luncheon, the ombudsman. Basically, there's a restaurant on Highbury Avenue. The mayor was there in the back room having lunch with 6 other members of council last Saturday. That's an issue. Someone tipped off the newsroom. Someone tipped off blogger Phil McLeod, who made mention of it, and we've then pieced together who all was there. They were all the members of the Fontana 8, save for Denise Brown, and the ombudsman is now looking into things. Your thoughts?
Well, it's when I first heard about it on that weekend, quite frankly, I couldn't believe it. I just thought, not after the furor about the Harmony House a year ago on the eve of the
You thought it didn't sound like a legit possibility?
I completely poo-pooed it. I thought that they wouldn't do this. I mean, who would seriously do this a year after similar type situation when all the furor that went on last year? I mean, how could this be? That was my first reaction, and even to this day, I say, why didn't somebody say, whoa, just a minute, this could be difficult if this gets out, what we're doing?
But to be the devil's advocate, I guess I ask, and I will ask you this, who cares? We know that there are sort of quiet discussions all the time behind the scenes. What's the big deal about this?
I think the big deal is the fact that in the Municipal Act they talk about they warn members of council about congregating in significant numbers, and discussing civic business. It is seen as a no-no under municipal legislation.
Because it's backroom.
It looks like
backroom dealing.
It looks like backroom dealing, old boys network.
Well, it is backroom dealing. If you're doing
interestingly enough, because there's no party politics in local government, there's no caucusing going on. At the provincial level and at the federal level, groups of politicians in political parties can gather and talk political business all they want, and their caucus meetings are closed to the public. This is very interesting that the different rules apply for municipal governments, and I think Joe Fontana, having spent so many years in Ottawa, was quite used to dealing with caucus and caucusing, and so I think there's a little bit of caucusing that's going on here now, and it's a clash of cultures to some degree.
Well, that's a very interesting observation, and I agree with that, and I think that whatever the merit of the rules are, there are rules. There are laws about this, and you could make an argument that this is a crew that doesn't care, right? It looks that way, and maybe that's the larger issue, and they know that it's upsetting it'll be upsetting to a lot of Londoners, and I would say that it has been upsetting to a lot of Londoners.
I think 34 Londoners have complained.
But I see the emails that, I don't know that you've been getting this week, but I've been getting about this story, really like, thanks for doing this story, when generally if you're a reporter, you're getting either ignored or criticized by readers. For us to get like positive feedback suggests a lot to me, and should say a lot to those members of council, that this is a serious issue to a lot of people. And I think the reaction of some of them too, where they weren't interested in talking, suggests to me that they know, oh boy, here we go again. So now what can ultimately happen? The ombudsman can write a report that says you're a very bad boy.
Well, if you disagree with the legislation, and apparently a number of them do, and feel that they can meet anyway, why then, when asked about these meetings, these members of council, why are they refusing comment or denying they were there, or this sort of thing? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you disagree with it and you think the legislation is wrong and you're going to meet in the interests of the city and in the interests of getting business done, why are you then all of a sudden being secretive and not talking about it?
Yeah, and it
suggests to me some people think there's something that looks like they're hiding.
And based on what the mayor himself said, I don't think there's any doubt at this point that there was a voting majority of the Economic Prosperity Committee there. He himself said they were discussing economic prosperity matters. If I'm the ombudsman, I'm starting my investigation there, and I'm ending it there, because that's a secret. Maybe I'm missing something, but to me that seems like an admission of a secret offsite meeting that meets two of the key components. You got a voting majority or a quorum or whatever,
and civic business.
and you get the business related to that committee. So this is an interesting one, and I think that he hasn't yet launched a full-blown investigation. I suspect he will. Is it Watergate? No, but it's another sort of
just
nick on the Rembrandt.
refresh the viewers' memory. When Andre Marin looked into the gathering at the Harmony House a year ago, and you followed that very closely at the time, what was his recommendation, or what came out of that? What did Marin, the Ombudsman, say about that meeting at the Harmony House?
He said, now that was within hours of the final budget debate, he said it didn't break the provincial rules, but it was ill-conceived and created unsavory optics. In other words, maybe not the best idea to do this again. Fast forward a year later, they have a bigger gathering at a restaurant at the edge of town, in the back room of that restaurant, instead of in the middle of a place that's right in the middle of the downtown of London. So it's sort of a brazen response, and you know what, maybe they didn't take the Ombudsman's report that seriously. I suspect this one could be more serious, and his is an office that I think a lot of people take seriously. They listen to Marin, right? He's got credibility as the watchdog, and I can't imagine that he's too pleased about this.
Well, it sounds like it meets those two criticisms that he had last year. Seem to be that he could be repeating them about this one on the surface of it, and possibly going farther.
Unsavory and savorier.
Unsavorier.
Yeah. Okay, budget finished last night. It was a late night and a long night, I think, for everybody, but congrats to council and city staff. They got a 1.2% tax hike, which is $30 on the bill if your house is assessed at the average, which is $202,000. I got two schools of thought I heard on the mayor's speech about I'm backing off zero because it's the best thing for the city. This is a magnanimous gesture by someone who's realized his key campaign promise was unrealistic, and he's big enough to admit that he might have been wrong in 2010.
And his promise was, and I just heard it again, he said for 4 years he's going to deliver a tax freeze in each of the 4 years, and in his 28 years in politics, he'd never failed to deliver a promise. So
is that right?
That's what he said. He said he'd
Where
never.
Where did you hear that?
That was on TV. They replayed the clip.
Oh, they replayed the clip?
He said in four years it'll be a freeze, and in 28 years in public office, which was at the time when he was running for mayor, he says he's never failed to deliver a promise. So this looks like it's a watershed.
So. But is that a bad thing that he did that? So that's step one. The other school of thought by some people quietly on council is that he didn't have the support to push through what he needed to, and he got out in front of it, and instead of being seen to be defeated on zero, he sort of gave up himself. So which do you think is more accurate, or is it both?
Well, I never care for people who are ideologically hidebound to any particular course and say this is the way it's going to be for the next 4 years, regardless, come hell or high water. Quite frankly, I think you have to be flexible. Politics is the art of compromise. I think in this case he realized that perhaps there was going to be some serious divisions, and he would lose some support if he continued to push for 0%. And I agree with you, Pat. I think he got it out. He got out front of it and showed some magnanimousness and
magnanimity. I think is the word.
Magnanimity. Thank you very much.
All right,
my wordsmith friend.
That's right. Okay. Well, I think
Underwood typewriter.
Yeah, that's right. So I think so we're sitting at 1.2. He says, "Come on, guys, let's just leave it at 1.2." Then Matt Brown says, "No, let's tack $1 million on top of that for economic development." And then that passes by an 8-7 vote with Denise Brown breaking ranks. And I wondered when I saw that vote.
Do you think Fontana saw that coming?
I don't know. I think maybe he saw that Denise wasn't going to support him en route to zero, and that's.
But did he see? Do you think he saw Matt Brown's idea of let's get moving now and put $1 million of?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I don't think he did.
I don't know. It doesn't look like it.
It didn't look like it. No. But that was a curveball, and she supported it, and I just thought, geez, I wonder if we've just watched the beginning of the end of the Fontana 8, because this was a group of politicians who were bound by mission to get to zero. Well, we're no longer doing that. That party is over. And you saw the final vote on the budget was 12-3. So let's just establish that Denise Brown at this point, who's flipped and flopped and now flipped again, is against the mayor. If she doesn't flop back, she's not backing him. The final budget vote was 12-3 with the mayor in support, but against was Bud Polhill, Dale Henderson, Paul Van Meerbergen. Yeah. So there's 4 of the Fontana 8, at least last night. who voted against him or not with him, and I thought, I wonder if we're seeing an unfurling of a reality in the second half of this term where the Fontana aid isn't going to be as powerful.
Well, we'll
as
have
it has
to
been.
see. We'll have to see.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, and time will tell on that. But I just wonder. It seemed interesting to me that one, and I think that people are casting an eye toward 2014. They got to get reelected.
Well, the numbers are worth watching. 0 is gone. Is 8-7 gone?
Or is 8-7 now 7-8?
Or is quite right.
Interesting. Okay, so there was another matter up this week. FinCor, help us at the planning committee. Walk me through FinCor. Tell the fine readers what that
FinCor is the $300 million high-rise and wellness center that they want to develop at the south end of Soho along the Thames River, just east of Wellington Street. A $300 million project, 26 stories, one building, 18 stories. They've scaled back on the other from 26. Condos, stacked townhouses, and all that sort of thing. There's going to be access to the river, apparently. Anyway, this whole project is massive and it requires a rezoning, and FinCor was before Planning Committee to get the rezoning. After some chit-chat and some concerns from the public, because this was a public participation meeting, there were issues about land ownership, prematurity in terms of rezoning, a number of issues that it was felt at the end of the night that Planning Committee wanted to send it back to staff for a report back on some of these outstanding issues to come back by May, I think it is, to further deal with this. So the public participation meeting, quite frankly, there weren't a lot of people there, and there wasn't a lot of howls of protest against this thing, which we'd led to believe there might be, because I think the developer FinCor had worked with the community to address some of their concerns. It shrunk one of the buildings, it shrunk the central section, increased access, and made it more acceptable to the neighborhood. So bottom line is that's coming back in May, and we'll be watching it then.
And it would be I think a great thing for Soho. It certainly seems like an ambitious, great project. I'm just not convinced if we're dreaming or we're fantasizing here. And there was a quote in the story that you wrote of one of the neighbors who said, I don't see this thing ever actually happening. And I read that and I thought, yeah, you know what, I kind of agree.
Well, the interesting thing is they say they don't need all the property to proceed with the development.
This is property that they don't own.
Yeah, they don't own a lot of property on that site. They have to acquire some from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority and the city. It has to go to the city first, and then it could be made available. There's no guarantee FinCor will get it when it goes on the public market. There's other parcels of property on that site that are not owned by FinCor. One particular gentleman owns a building on the corner at South and Wellington, says he will not sell. He has no intention of selling. He will not move. So FinCor says, well, we don't need to get all the properties to start, but the thing is they're going to do it in phases, and where they say they're going to start is right exactly where that building is, where that gentleman is who won't sell it. So I don't know how this is going to work. Next few months there'll be a lot of chit-chat going on, discussions with property owners. We'll have to see if it changes. Quite frankly, there's a lot of hurdles for this thing to
And in a broader context, a $300 million development sounds like a massive development to me. This is not a company that's created anything of that scope before.
All we know that they own is the Oasis Retirement Center in Lucan, and they had planned to put one into Grand Bend. They seem to be well financed. That remains to be seen. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. It's one of those developing stories.
You said that's what? In May it's back?
In May it's back before Planning Committee. Yep. Talking about upcoming things, Pat, I understand that there's an upcoming piece about a hockey player that you've been following.
Oh, yes, Chip. Thanks for bringing that up.
Unprovoked, I must say.
Travis Konechny, who I've been following all season with our series The Prospect, which is at lfpress.com/The Prospect. We have a story going on Saturday that we got a look at the OHL Central Scouting rankings. He's going to be drafted in April. And
any idea where he might be drafted?
He is ranked #1 in the province, which is sort of unbelievable. And it's looking like the Ottawa 67s will finish last, which means they pick first, and they are sort of in love with him. And why wouldn't they be? He's a great player. So that's the nature of the story that's going, and we're really excited about it for him.
How often has the top draft pick in the entire province come from the London area?
It's been 10 years since it happened, and it was about 7 years before that. And
Any names?
Patrick McNeil, who went first overall to Saginaw in 03, and then Charlie Stevens, who went first overall in 97, and they were from Strathroy and Nilestown, respectively. Both struggled in the transition to the professional ranks, but we have a story going in Saturday, and it's got a list of the last 20 #1 picks, and Konechny is not guaranteed to go first, but it's looking very good with the April 6th draft looming, and for us to have followed him for the season, it's been a really great ride, and we're getting kind of to the point where the pot's really boiling, and I encourage everybody to read it. Even if you're not a hockey fan, it's still
and this is in Saturday's London Free Press?
And lfpress.com. Well, there you go. So after that shameless self-promotion, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.